Okay, this video might not make a whole lot of sense on its own. This is a companion video to my other video, Superman Versus. If you've seen that one, then you know that I put in a few little markers for appendixes, and that's what you're watching now, an appendix video. The really crazy thing is that there is a final appendix here, Appendix 2A, that arises from the appendix itself. Yes, I did put way too much time into this, but I make no apologies. My time is mine to waste as I see fit. But when I wrote up the script for the Superman video, I veered off course more than a few times into lengthy asides. Some of those I just did away with, but others I wanted to keep. I couldn't put them in the main video, so here they are. Appendix 1A, the Flaming Carrot reference. I have read a few too many comic books. And by a few too many, I mean that I'm only a couple issues away from becoming the Flaming Carrot. Most of you didn't get that one, and that's good actually. These days there are far too many master-level characters made available to casual fans. Movies and streaming series will appropriate any character at all. I was amazed to find out that Starro the Conqueror and Mr. Nobody had film adaptations. These characters should not just be packaged up and served to movie audiences like fast food. The Flaming Carrot has no film adaptation. Anyone out there remember the movie Mystery Men? Mr. Furious and the Mystery Men were comic book characters originally. They were adapted to the screen from a comic book series called Flaming Carrot Comics. The strange thing is, the few characters in that movie that came from the comic books are very minor characters. They did not take the central character of that series, the hilarious and bizarre Flaming Carrot. He's a character that the movies simply could not adapt. According to his origin story, the Flaming Carrot was a regular man until he read 5,000 comic books all in a row to win a bet. The result was that he became simple-minded and insane. It also inspired him to become a superhero himself. It's a nifty literary allusion. The Flaming Carrot was driven insane by his stories, and he decided to become like the heroes of those stories. It's the same origin as Don Quixote, who read too many romances of knights-errant, inspiring the silly old man to become a knight himself. Past that origin, the two characters have very little in common, but it is still pretty cool. And now you know that when I say that I'm only a couple comic books away from becoming the Flaming Carrot, it means that I've read way too damn many comic books. Appendix 1B. In the main video, I mentioned several characters that online articles say can defeat Superman. This is the part where I explain why I say some of those characters cannot defeat Superman. Ghost Rider, Magneto, Captain Atom, the Scarlet Witch, Rogue, Kitty Pryde. No, these are all wrong. I'm not going to explain them all in detail. But Ghost Rider, Captain Atom, and the Scarlet Witch. These characters have seen major upgrades granted to them in recent years. By recent years, I mean the dark times following July of '06. And modern comics do not count. I do not care that any modern writer has wanted to amp up these characters. The old versions, the real versions, cannot defeat Superman. Admittedly, Captain Atom does stand a chance, but I would give better odds to Wonder Woman. I will explain Rogue, though. Does she stand a chance of beating Superman? Well, yes, but it is highly unlikely. Rogue's powers are difficult to use and unreliable at best, not to mention the trauma that her powers can cause to her own mind. Besides that, while it might sound clever to list a power thief as a character with the potential to defeat Superman, Superman already has an enemy with powers similar to Rogue, the Parasite. And the Parasite doesn't fare too well against Superman. I have no reason at all to believe that Rogue would do any better. So, why can't Kitty Pryde defeat Superman? Again, honestly, it's not impossible. So I do understand why someone listed her there. Her ability to turn herself intangible will not do any damage to Superman. But turning other objects intangible, that can be a great offense. Solidifying an object inside a living body can be devastating. That kind of attack can do serious damage even to the heavy hitters like Superman. but it will not likely defeat him. Anyone who says otherwise doesn't understand just how resilient Superman is. Let me give you a couple of other heroes as examples. This is Will Payton, the Starman of the late 80s and early 90s. He was super strong, and he had the endurance to match. He wasn't as strong as Superman, not at all, and he was still too indestructible to be defeated by intangibility tricks. Starman fought a villain named Deadline a few times. Deadline was a high-tech assassin who could turn intangible. When they first fought, Deadline put his gun barrel into Starman's chest and fired. The result of a suddenly solid projectile striking inside his body? Ow. That's it. It didn't even knock the man off his feet. It hurt him. It hurt him pretty bad. But it did not kill him. It did not even defeat him. Another example. Kitty Pryde herself once used this tactic against a hero whose power level and endurance is comparable to Superman. Thor. And how well did Kitty's power work on Thor? This story took place back in 1990. Kitty and her team, Excalibur, were under the influence of an illusion. They believed that Thor was the Juggernaut. To tackle that extreme threat, Kitty did something that she ordinarily would not. She turned him intangible and lowered him into the docks where they were fighting. Any normal enemy would be killed. Thor was not. Not only was Thor not killed, he wasn't even unconscious. He was, in fact, able to free himself and continue fighting. The same thing would happen if she were to attempt this with Superman. An attack like that does have the potential to injure these people, but she would have to do it again and again to stop him. The likelihood of that is pretty slim. Meanwhile, Kitty herself is not immune to Superman's abilities. This list suggested that Superman couldn't lay a finger on her. But is she immune to heat? If not, then his heat vision would be effective. She can still hear when she's intangible, so that means she can be affected by sonics. And yes, Superman is capable of that. Superman's powers can solve a lot of problems. An intangible enemy would be a real problem. But Superman does tend to overcome problems like that. Appendix 1C, the Vision. I'm going to spend a little more time on this one, so he gets his own subsection of the appendix. I've seen the comments from fans of the Avengers, both comics and movies. The Vision could just reach into Superman's chest and rip his heart out. I read those actual words more than once. That's the power they're relying on. Okay, the Vision is powerful, but Superman has super speed. He can move faster than the Vision can see. Checkmate. Of course, it's not really that simple for either of them. Could the Vision defeat Superman? Yes. How likely is that, though? Well, some comic book readers will say that the Vision already has, and they can make their point. In fact, I'll make it for them. First off, let me tell you that the Vision has a lot of history. I bet a lot of people think that he's a fairly new character. But the Vision debuted in Avengers number 57, all the way back in 1968. The character is quite a bit older than I am. So forget what you see in the movies. The comic book Vision has a couple generations of history behind him. People put him on their internet lists for a reason. It's because moviegoers recognize him. I hope that's not the only reason, though. I'll go ahead and give the creators of these lists the benefit of the doubt and assume that they do know a little bit about comic book history. As a real comic book geek, let me tell you that the real Vision, the comic book Vision, defeated Hyperion once. And Hyperion is an alternate reality version of Superman. If I am to believe this story, then Hyperion, in spite of all of his power, was stopped in mid-flight by the Vision with ease. And the Vision was able to defeat Hyperion with his best trick, turning intangible to reach inside an enemy and then increasing his density. So you could point to this battle and its outcome as evidence that the Vision has the advantage over Superman. The trouble is, this story really sucks. A lot of comic book writers don't know what they're doing, and even the best ones can get things wrong. Comic books are filled with discrepancies. It can't all be true. Take Superman, for example, since that's relevant. If I have to believe every story, then Superman is so incredibly strong that he can move the entire Earth by hand. There's more than one story that depicts him doing that very thing. And the Earth? That's nothing. Here's Superman flying to the center of the sun, unharmed, and moving our star. Hell, if Superman lets loose a good sneeze, it can destroy an entire solar system, right? So, it looks like Superman's strength is so vast that the Vision wouldn't stand a chance no matter how dense he becomes. Except that I don't believe any of these ridiculous stories. They're stupid. I loved it when the 90s Supergirl mocked this idea. For reasons that would take too long to explain, there were two Supergirls at once. And one of them had the naive idea that she could move the Earth to prevent a cosmic impact. The more intelligent Supergirl explained it to her. What the hell are you doing? What does it look like I'm doing? A handstand. That's how much you know. Okay, I give up. What's the deal here? I'm trying to push Earth out of its orbit. Okay, on your feet. What you're doing is wrong on so many levels. First, that meteor you heard about? The Justice League is already on top of that one. By this point, it's probably not even a threat. Second, you can't relocate the globe by pushing on it. Third, on the off chance you could, it would cause worldwide environmental destruction, kill millions of people, and probably end life as we know it. Oh, well, that would be bad. Yeah. I don't believe that Superman, or anyone, can push planets around by hand. I also do not believe that the Vision can just swat Superman around like he's nothing. Superman's powers do have limits. He can be beaten. Likewise, though, the Vision is not indestructible or immovable. He could not stop Hyperion the way it is shown here. Even if you want to think that the Vision could survive this impact, what is it that causes Hyperion to bounce off of him? That impact should have sent the Vision hurtling, even if he were unharmed. You expect me to believe that Hyperion can't even knock the Vision down? If the Vision were to use his special reach inside and turn up the density trick, it is unlikely that would defeat Superman. It wouldn't work for Kitty Pryde. It won't work for the Vision either. It would hurt Superman. Yes, even Superman would be harmed, possibly injured. But it is not likely that he would be defeated. And that's only if the Vision managed to pull off that trick without being struck by Superman first, which is also highly unlikely. Oh, and some people have suggested that the Vision could use invisibility. Back in the old days, that was not a power that the Vision had, so that's modern post-2006 comics that I refuse to acknowledge. Like so many other longtime readers, I do not accept modern comics. But let's suppose I were to allow this. Superman has fought invisible opponents before. His super senses can accommodate for that. He would hear the Vision's internal mechanical operations long before the Vision could reach him. I mean, Prince Namor could overcome the Super Skrull's invisibility. You expect me to believe that Superman can't do the same? Appendix 1D. Why is Wonder Woman only an honorable mention? This is the part that really made me decide to create this companion video. I just couldn't sum this up in a single paragraph. You really have to take a close look at the history of Wonder Woman-Superman battles to understand this. And that was way too much for the main video. Does Wonder Woman belong on the main list? No. Not this list anyway. Anyone else, anywhere else can make their own lists. And fans of modern comics will insist that Wonder Woman has defeated Superman on many occasions. To accept that, though, I would have to accept that modern DC comics are real, canonical stories. I will not do that. But Superman and Wonder Woman, they did face off more than once back in the days of real comic books, too. There's more than one list of Wonder Woman's battles with Superman. I've chosen one to dissect here, just to make the point. Some of the fights count, others do not. And anything past a certain date are non-canon as far as I'm concerned anyway. What I mean is, most of Wonder Woman's battles with Superman take place after June of 2006. The DC Universe is dead. Marvel too. DC and Marvel did not die all at once, and in fact it is still possible for either of them to create good stories. But what they were? That's gone. Destroyed. The cancer of disillusionment has corrupted these stories irreparably. There was one particular moment when the destruction reached its climax. This was the point of no return. The final issue of Infinite Crisis in 2006. Why this? Well, that will be the final entry in this appendix. Very few DC comics past that date are real comics as far as I'm concerned. Even if that weren't the case, my list was limited to the pre-Crisis universe, the DC universes before 1986. So let's take a look at this list. 15 times Wonder Woman battled Superman. It's from CBR. Superman and Wonder Woman fought in the Red Sun story. This does not count. It's an Elseworld. Way back in the day when I had a lot more hair, stories like this were called imaginary stories. What that means is that this is a story deliberately placed outside of any of the timelines that are normally considered actual DC Universe history. Most Elseworlds and imaginary stories are just thought experiments, really. There are some very good imaginary stories and what-ifs in Elseworlds. But even the good stories would not make my list. I haven't read Red Sun, to be honest. For all I know, it's very good. But even if it is, that is another Superman and another Wonder Woman, not the ones that matter to this question. Next is a story called Villain's Journey, a new 52 story from 2012, well past the point of acceptable canon. By then, the writers felt they could do whatever they wanted to do to Superman. This story does not count. Fans of modern comics, and I know there are at least 15 of them, they will complain. But regardless, my list involves the classic pre-Crisis universes. This story inarguably does not belong on my particular list. This story does count. Or at least, it would count, if it had ended differently. It's from Justice League number 143. It's a good fight. It proves the point that Wonder Woman was strong enough to fight Superman even back in the days of Earth 1. If it can be said that Wonder Woman overcame Superman here, though, it was not because she outfought him. It was because she outplanned him. We're looking for people who outfought or outpowered the Man of Steel. This is an impressive battle, but it does not make the list. It does, however, put Wonder Woman on the list of honorable mentions. Okay, I don't even know why this is on someone else's list. Wonder Woman and Superman don't actually fight in this. At least not a real one-on-one fight. Barda and Orion put Superman on the ground, and Wonder Woman helps the Martian Manhunter hold him down for a moment. Why would that even count? This one is from Superman Wonder Woman Annual number 1. Okay, screw any further explanation. This is from 2014. It doesn't count. Okay, this fight is from early 2005, so it is before 2006. But my list is all Earth 1 and Earth 2. This is well past it, and as I understand it, this fight didn't have a real winner anyway. It doesn't count. This one's from 2015, so it also doesn't count. You'll notice by now that most of these battles are from very modern stories. It's like they just thought it would be a good idea to have these two fight again and again, rather than make it a rare circumstance for heroes and friends to do battle. This is also from 2015. It does not count. Now that's more like it. A special issue, Superman vs. Wonder Woman from 1978. This one most definitely does count. The fight is fast, hard. It showcases the abilities of both characters. However, as good as it is, the battle is indecisive, as fights and battles quite frequently are, even in the real world. So this, again, puts Wonder Woman squarely on the honorable mentions of characters who could defeat Superman, but never have. Though it should be mentioned that in these few scarce, real, canonical battles, Superman did not win either. Okay, this one is post-Crisis and does not take place on Earth 1 or Earth 2, so it cannot make the list. Besides that, Wonder Woman does not actually fight Superman in this story. She outplans and outtricks him. So again, for two reasons, it doesn't count. This battle is from 2005, before the point of no return, but close enough to it to be immediately suspect. It is not an Earth 1 or Earth 2 story, though, so it does not count. Besides that, this takes place in an alternate timeline, but it's a timeline that was brought about through time travel, rather than through Elseworlds or imaginary stories, so would this count as an actual, formal, real timeline story? That's kind of muddy, a real gray area, and that also puts it off the list. Besides that, as you can see, Wonder Woman didn't win this one, so it wouldn't count anyway. There we go. Action Comics number 600, written by the legendary John Byrne back in 1988. This is a good story, one I consider to be real and true. This is still past the point of Earth 1 or Earth 2 continuity, though, so it doesn't make the list. Besides that, as it was revealed later in the story, they were not fighting for real. They were putting on a show, a mock battle. Injustice. This is an Elseworld, another imaginary story. And in this case, it puts some pretty heavy and indulgent emphasis on imaginary. It doesn't count. Okay, it's been a while since I read it, but I don't remember this story being good at all. It's from 2001, not too close to the deadline, but it is well past the point of Earth 1 and Earth 2 timelines. And besides that, even if you want to claim that Wonder Woman won this one, she won through magic. And only then because Superman was not himself. It doesn't count. And finally, you have this stupid story from 2005. Wonder Woman cuts Superman's throat with her tiara. This was a shit story, and this scene was included for shock effect. I wouldn't count this even if it had been an early era story. But it's not. It's past the actual Crisis on Infinite Earths, so it's disqualified anyway. Not many of those fights took place in the Earth 1 or Earth 2 timelines, and the ones that did either were not Wonder Woman victories, or they were disqualified for other reasons. Was it really worth the time to analyze all that? It was to me. Appendix 2A. Okay, the last entry in this appendix. This one does not refer to the main video. This is an explanation of something that I've said here in the appendix video. By recent years, I mean the dark times following July of '06. And modern comics do not count. So that's modern post-2006 comics that I refuse to acknowledge. Like so many other longtime readers, I do not accept modern comics. This was the point of no return. The final issue of Infinite Crisis in 2006. Why this? Well, that will be the final entry in this appendix. DC and Marvel are over. It doesn't matter that they're still producing comic books. The real stuff is gone. Those are not the only stories to meet this fate. There are plenty of them. Take The Simpsons, for example. I used to be a fan of The Simpsons. Almost everyone my age is at least a little bit of a Simpsons fan. I wouldn't even bother watching any of their modern episodes, though. I mean, that might not mean much. I was never a huge fan. But there are dedicated Simpsons fans. A lot of them feel that their beloved series is long gone. It doesn't matter that more episodes are being made. It's dead. And the fans know it. That's why I chose The Simpsons as an example. That's the franchise with fans who actually named the phenomenon. Look up the term zombie Simpsons. Most die-hard Simpsons fans have no respect for the modern stuff. The real Simpsons show is over, gone, dead. What remains is an animated corpse with no soul or spirit.
Damn shame how they screwed up your show. It's a nice little program.
DC and Marvel are the same. They are not the real thing anymore. They are zombie versions. That isn't to say that there can't be any good comics coming out of these companies. And this date, June of '06, that's not an actual cutoff. There are some stories made past that point that I will stand by, ferociously. Annihilation was amazing. I loved the depiction of Annihilus as a villain so completely insane that it even disturbed Thanos. Rebels was also outstanding. The return of the sinister Laurel Dox was perfect. And their main villain, their bizarre Starro Emperor, was a fascinating addition to the Starro legend. And it's also pretty cool that he bears no small resemblance to Frazetta's Death Dealer. And I have to mention the 7 capital cities of heaven. Iron Fist isn't exactly one of my favorite characters, but this story was good. It introduced the magnificent Fat Cobra. And even better than that was the Prince of Orphans, a man who could transform himself into a green mist, and it was revealed that his actual name was John A-Man. That makes him the Marvel Comics version of Amazing Man. Holy shit, is that cool! So, passion can still be ignited. But worthy stories became less and less common with every passing year. And now, the morass of filth being pumped out is just too pestilential to be braved. But why June of 2006? What made that month of that year the breaking point? Some people think that this was the moment that destroyed American comics. And this is truly revolting. This was not the turning point, though. This was just more salt in the wound. The most insulting and depraved moments of modern comics did not come about suddenly like that. DC and Marvel both slid as fast as they could into the most sickening displays of narcissistic, nihilistic iconoclasm imaginable. And the moment that slide began was the end of Infinite Crisis. Infinite Crisis is a lousy story. And if you don't know that, or if you don't believe that, then just look at how cheap and formulaic it is. There are 3 battles with their undefeatable villain, the envious and destructive and murderous Superboy Prime. Each of these battles follows the same pattern. Superboy Prime is undefeatable. Minor characters can be killed without concern, but at least one major character must be sacrificed to stop the villain. The major sacrifice will not be quick and easy, like a minor character, though. Major characters get touching final moments, so that their deaths will be heartbreaking and tragic and poignant. Superboy Prime first appeared in the mid-1980s. Of course, this story from the 2000s turned him into a bad guy. And I mean, it takes no time at all. When Superboy Prime first appeared, he was a wide-eyed innocent who fought alongside other heroes with great courage and no hesitation. This story would have you believe that he can become a mass murderer in an instant. We had been waiting to see this character again for 20 years. And this is what they gave us. Anyway, he ends up fighting a whole bunch of heroes all at once. A few expendable and obscure characters are killed, like Panther and Wildebeest. To defeat Superboy Prime, a major character has to be sacrificed. The Flash. But unlike the heroes who were killed just to make a point, the Flash's sacrifice is given some time, so that it can be heartbreaking and tragic and poignant. Of course, this unstoppable villain returns. He's too powerful for anyone to face. Not even Black Adam can fight this ultimate villain who is ultimately powerful. To defeat Superboy Prime, a major character has to be sacrificed again. This time it's Connor Kent, the mainstream Superboy of that time. And of course, Connor is not killed instantly. That's for minor characters. Connor's sacrifice is given some time, so that it can be heartbreaking and tragic and poignant. Superboy Prime was just warming up, though. There has to be an even bigger sacrifice to finally end this story. Here he is in the final issue, fighting a shitload of Green Lanterns like it's nothing. Now, for reference, here is Hal Jordan, a single Green Lantern from the Earth 1 era, and his ring is holding captive several Kryptonian powerhouses all at once. But somehow Superboy Prime is so ultimately powerful that he can fight the entire Green Lantern Corps all on his own, and they can't stop him.
Isn't that scary?
I mean, he's so powerful that he can freeze them to death in the void of space that they can survive in. Now, what you're seeing here is the climax of that battle. This is Superboy Prime fighting the Earth 2 Superman. And this is Superboy Prime beating that Superman to death. A bloody and savage beating. But hey, don't feel too bad about that. Superman's sacrifice is given some time so that it can be heartbreaking and tragic and poignant. Because that's the formula that this shitty and disrespectful story follows. But this is the moment. The death of the Earth 2 Superman. You get to thrill to the sight of his bloody and fatal beating. This is not just any Superman. This is not some alternate reality Superman. This is not a Superman from an Elseworld or an imaginary story. This is the original Superman. This is the Superman from 1938. This is the character who defined the entire superhero genre. Gratuitously killed for your reading pleasure by a lame-ass, unbelievable villain just because the writer needed a dramatic ending to his shitty story. June of '06. The day that modern writers decided to beat the original Superman to death. After that, there was no return, no respect, no dignity. They could do anything they wanted after that. Replace any character, destroy any legacy. This was the moment that the legend was born. And this was the moment that the legend began to truly die.